Well, welcome to the Followup podcast. My name is Hayden. I am the worship director here at Arbor Church, and today I'm joined by Alison and Coney, our community care pastor, who is balancing her microphone on her table, Cliff Tadema, our interim pastor, and my fellow director, Bryan, who directs the students on Thursday nights. Are you holding a glass of wine for your microphone?
Chablis or something.
Yeah.
It's a fine drink.
Oh, okay, nice. Well, what notes are you picking up right now?
They always say oak.
Wow, tobacco.
There was definitely a dog walking by.
Okay. Sweet.
I think it
know
was
how
about
to do.
75 degrees that day.
Picking up any grape notes?
No grape.
Okay, interesting.
Plum.
Plum.
I have issues.
All right, well, let's hop into the message after that quick little diversion, whatever you want to call that. This was our second week of Good News, Cliff, which is kind of like your what's the right word for this? Like your flagship series so far here at Arbor, and it's been really good. It's been different. It's a different format than what we typically. I think we talked about this last week. Arbor has kind of fallen into a little bit of the formula of like 1 to 3 points, and you have this different style of going through and having different points throughout the verse. So I found myself getting more used to the rhythm of your sermons on this week in particular, which was the tagline was broken pieces to masterpieces, right?
Correct.
Was
God
that
will turn your broken pieces into his masterpieces?
and is it just mine or is it like anybody's?
No, primarily yours, but
Okay.
he actually
That
does it
makes
for
more
everybody.
sense.
Yeah.
It's
That
all
makes
about
why
you this
really
week.
like the message. See?
Yeah. So that tagline, was that something that you read, the feeding the 5,000 and you were like, this makes a whole bunch of sense? Or is it something that you kind of came to earlier and the feeding the 5,000 kind of just fit in with that point?
No, it came from studying it first and then going, oh my goodness,
Yep.
I see something here. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Bryan and I both had talked about when you said broken pieces and the feeding the 5,000, it didn't necessarily click right away. And then when I saw your scripture, when you sent me the notes earlier in the week of the translation that you actually uses broken pieces, right? Which I thought was really cool and fit in so well. Last week, your tagline was lost. Was it lost and found or lost to found?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So both. It was both
That
of them. Okay,
Jesus
cool.
wants the lost found
Yep.
and saved, yes.
So
And we should too.
Yeah, when you were putting together this series, I don't know, I might have asked you this last week, but was there a focus on putting together these interesting taglines that would fit with people's life, but also having them deeply rooted in the scriptures that you wanted to walk through?
I think it's important that whatever we teach is deeply rooted in the Scripture, and so that should be the place we start from. But we had talked about it as a staff. I appreciate you giving me the credit as being my flagship, but I wasn't actually the one who came up with a name. I forget who did in our staff meeting, but said good
I think
news.
it was the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Holy Spirit
We'll give him
added
credit.
in. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
give him credit.
he's on staff. We pay
Yeah,
him.
he
I'm
is.
still waiting for
He
clean
leads the
slate.
staff as best we can let him.
Yeah.
But I think that's I think really the Holy Spirit. I would agree with Alison on that. That it's just a great time for us to focus on good news.
Yeah.
And then what is the good news, and how basic can we get with what that is?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where all that was born from.
Yeah, because there's so many like individual narratives or stories in the Gospels and in the Bible that are a lot of fun to teach through or to talk about, but sometimes the challenge is packaging them in a way that doesn't feel old and stale. And I mean, you did two very, very popular stories, the feeding the 5,000 and then also the lost parables, right? And sure, they'd be a lot of fun to teach on, but you have a lot of people who've been coming to church for a long time who are like, I've heard someone teach on those stories in particular a number of times. So sometimes the challenge is how can you package it in a new way that might have a new, piece of information for somebody, or they look at it in a different way. So I think it's been cool, and I'm excited to see what you do for the next 2 weeks. Is there 2 more weeks in this series?
There'll be more than that.
Okay.
Next week, Scott's teaching.
Okay.
And then the following couple I am, or I do, and then Allison does. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so this Sunday will be Scott.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
I hope that he remembered how to preach after being on break for so long. He's been
It's gotten lazy.
yeah. No, he's been living it up, man. He's been enjoying it. So, Scott's next week, and then you said, is that after Scott's week? Does that take us to Mother's Day?
No, there's
No,
one more
there's a
week.
week in
in
One more
between.
week. Okay.
Yeah.
And then Allison, you'll be on Mother's Day, and then we'll have Cliff. You have 2 more after Mother's Day.
For sure one.
For sure, one. Okay, yeah. All right. There's some questions I want to ask, but I don't want to get too far ahead in the series. So let's focus back more on broken pieces to masterpieces. In that process, you had said that you had landed on the feeding the 5,000 before you had landed on the title for this week. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what? Just kind of take me into the little bit of the back room of working through this sermon. What what led you to that title? I think it's pretty obvious because they say broken pieces. But why did you want to specifically teach on the feeding of the 5,000?
You know, I'm not sure. I had taught on feeding of 5,000 before, like you said, both probably the other one as well. But I didn't teach it from the same angle. And when just in discussing that particular passage, the 2 things that came out to me that I just thought, wow, I need to rethink how to teach this sometime just for fun, to come at it at a completely different angle.
Yeah.
Was the boy and the mom who were not counted. I'd never seen that before. And actually, I got to give credit to my wife on that one. She's one, as we were talking about it ourselves, she just said, wow, that really is amazing, because those they wouldn't have been counted. And it just was like, oh my goodness. And then the application of that for us, how many of us think we don't count, but God does think we count.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's such a great news, fundamental message that says, hey, if you're, no matter how broken you are, God still has plans for you. He's not done with you.
Yeah. That's
That
awesome.
reminds me of one of my favorite parts of it. I mean, I think your teaching helped me see the story in a couple different ways that were new. And one of them, you had also brought out the fact that not just the boy and his mom, like they're not really celebrated characters so much, but they are imperative in this miracle, right? But then you also talked about probably all the people who were there, 5,000 others, -2 or -1, that probably had food, were asked by the disciples, hey, would you think about contributing and handing it over to the master? And they were like, no, that's okay. Like, I'll keep my, whatever
Right.
I've got in my bag lunch, like, I think I'm more comfortable keeping it. Or, like you said, maybe like, hey, let's split it. Like,
Right.
I'll give you a couple, and then I'll keep some for myself for safekeeping or whatever, to assure that I've got
Yeah.
enough. I liked thinking about all the people who are more security-minded and missed out on being part of the miracle.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a fresh way for our crowd to be listening
Yeah.
to this too. I want everybody, when Jesus is inviting us along into his miracles and into his work, that we would say yes. Like, yes, take this and take it all, not just
Right.
like, I want part of it held back.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for me personally, I struggle with that. You know, I try to be a generous person, so I don't have a problem saying I'll give you some.
Yeah.
But there's a part of me, but God is unequivocal with that. He wants us to give him all of us. And I don't know that I would go so far as to say it this way, because I think he'll use whatever we give to him. Yeah.
Take my
take
my
yours
water
back.
back.
Yeah. I think he'll use whatever we give to him, but I think we miss out on so much if we don't give it all. And he asks for us to give it all. So, which means all of us, right? And all that we have. And I think our tendency is to go, oh no, Lord, I'll give you Sunday. I'll serve you this way, instead of looking at it, oh no, Lord, my life is now yours. And I'm giving you
So
my
they
life.
always say time, talent, treasures are the things that you can give to the Lord. Like
Right.
you said, like, oh no, I'll just keep Sunday, or no, I'll give Sunday and keep the rest myself. So time would be like, no, actually use every hour of this week, for
Yes.
your glory. And then time, talent, that would be what? The skill sets.
Yep. what you've given me
Yeah.
to be able to do.
And then
Yeah.
treasure is financial.
Right.
So, you can just take a tithe.
Right,
know?
right.
And even
right.
that sometimes is hard for people to want to give away.
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, yeah. And I've actually talked to believers who have said, hey, I give my tithe, I show up on Sunday. And to them, that meant I do more than a lot of people because
Right,
I
checking
know that the
boxes.
average person doesn't give a full tithe.
Right.
So I'm giving 10%, and I show up on Sunday, and I'll even greet people or something. If I can do it all in that time frame? But that's as far as it goes,
Right.
you know. And I think when we do that, we just shortchange ourselves because of what God would love to do if we give it all to Him, which is what He's asking for.
Wow.
I think one of my favorite things about this story is how evident it is that Jesus just served the people outside of just, serving them food, serving them the scripture. But Jesus was grieving in this moment. If you guys remember, he just found out what happened with John the Baptist. And it says that he withdrew to a place by himself, but as he was in his grieving moment, people started coming to him, and instead of hey, can you guys go away? I'm really mourning a relative of mine. He taught them and fed them, and then afterwards he sent his disciples ahead of him. That's, he's about to walk on water, but he also just went back to a place by himself. So I think as he was grieving, he was in just a time of himself, just wanting to grieve, interrupted, served, but then went back to that place by himself just to focus.
Since I'm not looking at my cheat sheet.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I'm kidding. So it's like a Bible trivia game in my head then.
Yeah.
So he hears the news.
Yeah, it says
right?
the feeding of the 5,000 starts with verse 13. It says, now when Jesus heard this, he withdrew.
Wait. I don't get my point then. If I got to get a point on the board
okay.
with my Bible trivia.
Okay.
Is this where he sees the crowd, has compassion on them because they were like a sheep without a shepherd? Or is that another moment?
No, it says
it
when
is.
he went ashore, he saw a great crowd. He had compassion on them and healed their sick.
That's Matthew, and Mark says he saw them like sheep without a shepherd.
Bam! One on the board for
Nice.
Alison.
Allison
yeah?
gets one.
Okay. No, because I just thought, I think having his spirit stirred towards their plight and thinking of even John the Baptist dying, and, so many of them would have been distraught as well.
Yes.
And then for that to have mobilized him into that ministry moment.
Yeah,
know.
just when I read it, I always remember the amount of grieving that he was experiencing during this time, and still served his people, which is probably a foreshadow of what's going to happen to him.
Spoiler alert. Come on, man.
Spoiler alert.
Well, technically, we just had Easter. Isn't this wasn't
Yeah,
Easter then the?
That's when the movie starts over, though.
No,
we're-
that's like when the movie starts at the end, and then it goes,
Oh.
now let me show you how we got there.
Oh, right, right.
And I'm like, you already told me.
Yeah.
Why am I watching the rest of this movie?
Why are we?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Can you think of a movie that does that?
A
Top of your
movie
head?
that does that?
Yeah, top of your head.
No, I can't think of that. But
Think of what a horrendous way John the Baptist died too. I mean, that is
Yes.
a horrific, traumatizing way to lose somebody that you love.
yeah.
And all the more reason they need Jesus amongst them.
Yeah, I think it's what you pointed out about the fact that Jesus ministered in the middle of his own grief, that he was willing to, he had that much compassion. But the piece that I hadn't thought of was, but at the end of it, he did come back and tend to that.
Yeah.
And there's something that we can learn from that too, isn't there? That when we and you do grief share, Allison. So when we are in that place, we may have to push it off for a minute, but we do need to address it.
Yeah.
Right? And you know that because you've seen people go.
Well, we
through
just started it last night too, which is ironic. We started the next 11-week thing. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, Joy, I have to dig deep within me to come and serve this little flock, like the brokenhearted, because it does require so much. And oh gosh, I didn't know if I had it in me last night, but God always shows up.
Yeah. Honestly, that could have been how Jesus was feeling.
Totally.
I
Do I
think
have
so.
do I have
think
this
so.
in me? Do I have this in me to
Yeah.
serve
Yeah.
5,000 plus.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
Yeah, Cliff, question for you. Why did you choose feeding the 5,000 and not the 4,000? I just really feel like the 4,000 in the church world is just so...
They do get left out.
Yeah.
Of that. Yeah.
so
yeah.
underrepresented.
They do. They do. I think I didn't really give a lot of thought as to one over the other as numerically, but the 5,000 probably had a lot more Gentiles involved in it. The 4,000 was really, I think, perhaps more primarily Jewish, but I don't know. There's
Is that
something
just where
that
the region
you
he
can
was?
just hang on to. Yeah, who knows?
Well, Brian's got something to look up after.
I actually really,
he's gonna
he's
be
gonna-
he's gonna
he's
be
gonna
checking
check
that
that
out
He'll be
now.
gone.
I
He'll
will be
gone
quiet for quite a bit of this podcast now to figure out where Jesus was.
Brian, you can just go ahead and turn your mic off so we don't have to hear anything. He's putting it away.
Nerd out.
Wow, Brian really is just checked out.
Checked out, man. Do we have a sub?
I can go check and see if anyone from Pepper's Farms has any Bible knowledge on him.
We don't have, like, hey, our guy in the back's going to get that fact real quick.
Yeah.
I have to do it right now really quick.
Whatever.
All right.
With him.
Well,
When
Cliff,
is his contract up?
yeah, brutal. I love it.
Kidding.
Cliff, what was the process like for you putting this message together? Was this maybe just let's do relative to last
Yeah.
week? Was it easier? Was it harder? Did you spend more time with it? Less time? What did you feel like?
I think, boy, I don't know if I spent more or less. Maybe a little bit more on this one. For me, it's putting a message together is like, it's a labor of love.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a love-hate thing. At first, it's really until all of a sudden the pieces start coming together, and when they do, it's like, oh my goodness. And then, when you get, for me, the thing that I never saw before, and this is a little bit dicier because the last one we just went through, if you might remember, verse by verse of the chapter. And with this one, continuing to go back and look at all four renderings to see, did I miss any pieces that are germane to this that one of the other guys mentioned that, he was saying Matthew is the only one who mentioned John the Baptist dying right before that. And but to me, John writing that Jesus had them do that because he didn't want anything wasted. I hadn't tied that back in ever before with the broken pieces and the people. And I just thought, but that really is the Father's heart. And he won't even waste our brokenness. That's really encouraging to me. I mean, when I screw up, if I give it to God, he won't even waste that. He's going to wind up using that. And that's so not just liberating, but kind of redemptive.
Yeah.
Because he's taken something that was even bad and he's actually turning it into good for us. And so I hadn't seen that tie together that clearly before. For me, it was like, are you kidding me? When I give him my broken pieces, he's not going to waste even that in those experiences.
That's so cool.
I think some people are it takes a lot of humility to be used in your broken place. Yes. And it takes a lot of trust in, I think you had one point where you said that these pieces were in Jesus' hands, and that's what made them, that's what made the miracle and the meaning and all of that. But I think of people who have regret in their brokenness, and they don't even want to mention it again. They don't want it. They don't want a light shined on it. They don't want it to be exposed. They would rather bury it and have it never ever see the light of day again, much less be used in that. So, I don't know. It takes a lot of humility. It takes a lot of trust in who's holding the pieces.
Yes, that's it right there, isn't it? That we can trust him with that openness and humility. Yeah, yeah. Because without it, then you're not letting him use it because you're not really giving it to him.
Right.
Yeah.
Brian a few weeks ago talked about a guy who experienced addiction, and out of his healing from that, started Celebrate Recovery and served other addicted people who were walking that same journey. And it was like he understood, that situation better than someone else who has
Yes.
never been through it and or who didn't have a heart or knowledge about it.
Right.
So,
And if he hadn't been willing to acknowledge his own brokenness there
Right.
and continue to acknowledge it, he would never have started that ministry.
right.
Because it would have, yeah. And the guy I talked about on Sunday,
Yeah.
my buddy Dave Browning, he was the same way. He was just so out there with it
Yeah.
because he wanted people to know the grace of God is so undeserved and so favorable, and that it's there for you if you're just willing to acknowledge it and begin to walk in it. And so there's a level of humility that I see God. The people that God uses in a great way tend to always have. And by a great way, I mean for his kingdom. I don't mean that they're popular or whatever.
Right.
But I mean, isn't what Moses said is, I mean, what was said about Moses, he was the most humble man.
Said he himself.
Yeah, said he himself. And he knew.
I always enjoyed that part.
Yeah.
Same with John. He says the disciple
Jesus loved.
Yeah. That was me, man.
Yeah.
Hey, Bryan, what are you finding, huh? How's it going over there in the study, Carol?
I have no
Who's
idea.
Carol?
Do you guys even know what a study carol is?
Yeah, it's when you study but sing at the same time. Like, I am studying the Bible. Like that.
Maybe it's a generational
What
thing.
song? I've never heard
Do you
that
know what a
melody
study
before in my
carol is?
life.
Yeah. It's when you study together, right?
No, it's like a little
A group.
What Christmas
no,
song
it's
is
like
that?
a little fence that you put up on your desk so that your neighbor doesn't copy off your.
Hark the Herald Angels
really?
Sing is the song.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
I've
a
never
study
heard it in that
carol?
context. I'll be darned.
CARRELL, like Steve Carell. Anyhow,
I'm gonna be
Anyway.
completely
I've
honest
never
with you. I
heard
was
of
so
that. I
busy
have
trying
not.
to figure out what song I was actually singing. What's the study carol? Or am I
Doesn't
gonna have to
matter.
go back and listen to
Doesn't
this
matter.
It's too late.
podcast?
You'll have to go back and listen. We're putting something up right now, so you can't cheat.
Yeah, I am figuring out that when Jesus was feeding the 4,000, he was on a mountain walking beside the Sea of Galilee. So I'm trying to figure out where this mountain might have been. And then feeding the
I think
5,000.
Sea of Galilee area.
And feeding the 5,000, I have no idea. Because it said that he withdrew to a desolate place. So I would have to figure out where on the Sea of Galilee there could have been a desolate place. Because,
probably quite a few.
right?
Yeah, then
Probably
you'd have
quite
to
a
ask
few.
yourself the question, would it matter? And would it matter if it was more Gentiles or
Oh, no,
more
you just
Jews?
made that statement and like it
know.
was a fact.
Just
so I'm just trying to figure
just
out the
to tweak
facts. Cliff, it doesn't matter,
to
but
see what
I'm
you
just
It's like
saying.
a game. It's a game.
You're gonna just spout out facts just like pastors who go up
Allison
on
got
stage and
point
say a
for
word
some
that's
Bible
not.
trivia, so I had to throw something
You
out there.
want points on the board. I understand, man.
I'm just saying it's like pastors who go on stage, preach, and actually like say a word that doesn't exist, make up a word and doesn't even care, just keeps talking. People are like, is that a word?
I'm just back here looking at the audio recording software, and I feel bad for all the headphone listeners who are gonna have 4 people talking all at the same time. It's just not gonna be pleasant for them. But
Our apologies. Money back guarantee, right?
are we charging? Am I supposed to be charging people to listen to this?
Oh, this is my side hustle, man.
Oh, that's my
Yes.
bad. Well, if you
You
want to
need
be
to
a side
hustle
hustle, you got to do ad reads halfway through. So I don't know if we have any sponsors this week, but
And the Follow-Up podcast is brought to you by Woods Coffee.
that was good, Brian. I think you could do our ad reads if we ever get to that point. So we've talked about. Oh, wait, Allison, did you already ask Cliff about? Was there anything we had to cut out for this?
I wanted to make sure that we covered that.
Well,
I
why
did
don't you
not
do that
ask
right
it.
now?
Great. Because you couldn't have done it?
Hey, Cliff, did
no
you cut
better
anything
time
out?
than the present, Allison.
Great.
Did
All
you
right.
cut anything out?
Oh,
Yeah.
Brian.
Yeah. Oh my
You
gosh.
just cut Allison out of that question.
He wants points on the board.
I think, I did. I cut out, but most of what I cut out were, I wanted to give some examples on some of these different
Yeah.
things that we just didn't have time for,
Yeah.
And actually one of the examples I wanted to give is just last week I had a friend of mine died from an accident. I'm going to call it an accidental overdose. Of course, we don't know if it was an accidental or not, but and she's somebody who who, man, when she was walking with Jesus, she was just on fire for him. And, but she fought with addictions, and man, she fought with addictions. And she would kind of come in and come out and come in. And I think I lost track of the number of times that she would go to get sober and come back and say, man, God's speaking to me and everything else. And just had this weakness, but God used her in spite of all of that. And in a way, you know, she was dealing with a lot of physical pain, and the what they believe is that she overdosed on pain medication. And in a way, I look at that and go, man, here's somebody that no one's going to later go a Billy Graham type of a person, or somebody who, wow, they seem to have it all together or whatever. And yet there are people that are walking with Jesus because this lady lived it. And yet struggled with that peace so hard for all of her life. And I couldn't help but think that, man, I still think she's resting well. Yeah. And that struggle's now behind her.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I feel bad for her hubby, who has walked through all that stuff with her, and some of that in and out himself, but loves Jesus too. And I just think there's room at the table for all of those kinds of people. So examples like that, to me, that I knew I couldn't include, and you know, I think those are things that, some of the stuff that hits the cutting room floor, that you go, man, it'd been fun to spend more time on that.
Yeah. Wow. That's very powerful. We are getting close on time. Was there anything that Bryan, you didn't find any more on 4,000, did you?
No.
Okay.
Except for, I am curious, just biblically, why just a difference in loaves of bread, the 7 versus the, like, not just loaves of bread, because you brought this up too, that I thought was really interesting, the 12 baskets and the feeding of the 5,000. Was it 12 baskets full?
Yes.
And then on the feeding of the 4,000, there were 7. So for me, I'm just like, I don't know if that's just how it ended up, or is like there's some big like difference where there are less disciples around at that time. Like,
Yeah,
did
that's
Jesus?
what I was wondering, because I liked how you pointed out that each disciple had their own basket to collect the leftovers. Each got to see the miracle that close up, and like it was tangible to them. And so
Now
maybe
here's what's fascinating about
Yeah.
that to me. That's how clear the evidence was to each one of them, right?
right.
But then they jump on the boat and they start going across the lake, and they freak out when they hit the storm, and then they see Jesus, and what does he say? Didn't you get it? He actually kind of says, hey, didn't you get it when the feeding of the 5,000? So even though all that evidence
know.
was right there,
I know.
I think to myself, how often do I miss it when I got it
Oh, yeah.
in
Well,
my hands?
it's transferable learning, right? It's like, okay,
Yes.
well, I knew that you could do the bread thing.
Right, right.
Like, I just
right.
didn't think you could
But
do
the wind and waves?
water thing too, or the
Yeah.
defying gravity thing. I just didn't know that was a deal. Like you didn't you didn't have transferable learning,
Oh,
where
that's
you could go. Actually, you could do anything.
Right.
Anything.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So see, that'd have been a fun one to, if we had time,
Yeah.
right? To kind of
Yeah.
launch forward, to come back again and say, but they still, transferable learning. That's a great phrase for that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, to me it's just weird because 5,000 they started off with 5 loaves and 2 fish. 4,000 they started off with 7 loaves and a few small fish, and then they come up with 7 baskets. And so to me, I don't know if that's just the way it ended up. I don't know if Jesus, used a lot of his power in the 5,000. It's like, man, I'm a little exhausted, guys. I can only do 7 baskets this time. I don't know. To me, it's just interesting. Was it intentional, or
The
is it
cleanup crew was smaller. He just,
or maybe
There weren't as many people.
not? But there's not as many people, but there's less food left over. So like with 5,000, there's 12 baskets full,
Right.
but 1,000 less.
because he knew the cleanup team was small.
Yeah. Or else, if mathematically you had the same amount of food per person, you would have less food left over for 4,000 and 5,000. I think if we really worked at it, we could create an entire culture around this. And maybe, have some kind of rules and regulations on it and all that stuff.
I think so. Yeah.
/ is this a good time to promote the facilities team? Cleaning up is fun.
Yeah.
Cleaning up is awesome. You get to see the
Or
miracles.
maybe these 4,000s are just like me. You know, it's like, hey, can I get some seconds? Maybe thirds? Like, that was really good, Jesus.
Put a little cheese on it this time.
Can I, is there any left over? Did everybody get some? I don't want to take some if nobody else. You good? All right, I'm just a little bit.
Just a doggy bag to go, you know?
I wonder if his bread was as good as the wine at the wedding. You know how it was like, wow, you saved the best for last.
Yeah.
Jesus makes great wine.
Yeah.
I wonder if he makes great bread too.
He just
or if
brought
it
out
just
this-
multiplied whatever the boy's
Yeah.
mom had.
Yeah, I'm saying
know.
he didn't make the bread.
Well, it just like
That's a fun
it
question, though,
keeps
because
Yeah.
he kept
appearing,
multiplying it, right?
Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
They're like, wow, this is some like crusty artisanal sourdough.
Right.
Where did you?
With a little hint of rosemary.
Yeah,
And garlic clove.
Right. I didn't even see the olive oil, and yet it tastes like it.
Is this honey butter that I'm tasting? Jesus, you should not have done that.
Yeah,
Oh
she's
my
like, hey,
gosh.
just to let you guys know, this bread you're getting a little taste, but this is Red Lobster's. This is Red Lobster.
You ever
that
had a
good?
cheddar?
I know.
You ever had a cheddar biscuit before? Your mind is gonna be blown. You're not ready for this.
But
taste
your
of
kids
heaven.
will love it.
Your kids will love it.
That's what-
In the
Jesus
comment
had-
section, please tell me the movie that I just quoted.
Fast and Furious.
Your kids will love it.
Yeah. Familia. All right. Well, I think at this point we should probably wrap up. We're getting close to the 40-minute mark. So
Anytime we quote movies, it's time to call it.
well, because then it could just go on for an hour at that point, you know. Well, I'm excited to hear from Scott this Sunday. He's going to be carrying on Good News, and then we're going to take. Are we? I don't know if we're ready to talk about this. Are we taking a break from Good News for Mother's Day? Or are you?
No.
No,
You're
Mother's
carrying the
Day is good
baton
news,
forward?
baby.
There's actual good news for mothers on Mother's Day.
I don't
Yeah.
buy it. I don't
Yeah.
buy it.
I don't.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
It's gonna be awesome.
Sweet. All right. Well, I'm excited that we're gonna be spending at least 3-4 more weeks in Good News. All right. Well, if you guys want to join us on Sunday, you can RSVP for our in-person gatherings here in the sanctuary. We won't have the pub tables set up, so I hope you're not disappointed. But we'll have service here in person, or if you would like to join us online, we'll be online at 9 and 10:30 a.m. You can go to our website, YouTube, Facebook, find us there. And if you want to listen to the follow-up with Scott next week, that will also be on a Wednesday at 8 a.m. And I think that's all the plugging that I can do. I feel pretty shameless doing all this plugging. But
We have student ministries Thursday, 7:00.
oh, yeah, we do that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, be a part of that.
We play dodgeball. We hit Hayden's guitar last week.
And you hit a camera. Like, I should know better. One, being a part of a youth group and just working at a church, that I should expect on Sunday morning after a youth group has happened that the room should just be completely destroyed. But you told me that my guitar got hit by a dodgeball, and I was like, it's youth ministry, right? What are you gonna do? And then I came in, and Mihai was like, there's a camera pointed at the ground. And I went back to the video switching room, and it was legitimately just angled all the way down. And I think that a kid purposely threw a ball at that
Yeah,
camera.
no.
There's no way that happened.
You know,
on
do you remember
accident.
when you were a kid and you walked through doorways and you just always like jumped up like you were dunking a ball?
You're telling me a kid tried to jump the camera?
Just jumped up, was like, "Can I do it?" And did like the Michael Jordan
Yeah.
tongue out and just
That's very disappointing.
Yeah.
I'm not happy to hear that.
Tell me
Well,
how many doorways have you dunked on?
Yeah, but didn't you slam dunk the kid?
No, I gave him a high five.
Charge their
Well,
parents.
I'm not.
His vert was incredible.
Charge their parents.
I'm
Great
not-
vert, but your mom and dad are paying for it.
It was a sixth grader. The vert was just incredible.
Well, I'm not Cliff or Bryan size, so I don't do a lot of dunking. I'm sorry, Bryan. So when you asked that question, I thought How many times would I have liked to dunk? Yes.
Okay, well,
but not-
sorry. Yeah, your hops are a little. How many like finger roll layups
Oh,
did
yeah,
you practice
finger-
on doorways?
My finger roll layup is, you've seen it, Bryan.
Yeah.
I drive very well. All right, this is.
Were you wrapping us up?
Yeah, I was.
Please.
I was
Please.
trying.
It goes from movies to sports.
Yeah,
Alison
sorry.
hates this
Better
follow-up.
shots.
We don't even need outro music because everyone's stopped listening at this point. So this is great. Well, thank you.
Studying the Bible.
Thank you for, if you're still listening to the Follow Up podcast. We'll see you guys next week.